When you guys first started feeling that God was moving you to foster and to potentially adopt, how did that process kind of work in your minds and your hearts? How did you get to the place where you said yes when God was calling you to that in your life? Because that's such a challenge. When you hear about it, it's intimidating thinking about what that's going to be. How did that work for you guys?
We were talking about that, and that was actually one of the things we were talking about last night, that we somewhat practiced this question, in that when we were struggling with fertility and having children and having more children, because we had Caden and we realized, both of us, that we really wanted more kids, that we really wanted, we wanted a big family. We wanted to be able to raise kids and raise them the right way and have that relationship and have just the things that weren't afforded to us, or that we didn't have. And so we just said, you know what, we're going to do this, and we want to have more kids. And so we went through fertility. We went through struggles with it. And it was kind of at a point of, well, do we go and do more, or do we look at other avenues to have kids? And at that time, it was kind of like a Holy Spirit prompting, or just a prompting of, well, what about fostering? What about adoption? What about... And so I kind of turned to Sabin and I said, what do you think about that? And her answer was,
I will never foster. And like I said earlier, it turns out that is I double dog dare you, Jesus, to make me do this. And when I told Dan that, he just kind of, okay, well, I'll let you wrestle with Jesus. And so 2 years later, I was stubborn. I thought, I'm not doing this. And I had all the reasons why this was such a bad idea. And then I had it out, one last argument with the Lord. And I said, I cannot do this. It will destroy me. And very clearly he said, he will not destroy you, but it will break your heart.
What were a couple of those things that were on your mind that were making you hesitant to it, that were holding you back?
Well, so I love big, right? Everybody's welcome into my home, our home. I love big, and so there's no give backs. I can't be giving children back. I can't be sending them back into something that I know is not good. Except I'm not God. I don't get to be on the throne. And so you love big. I mean, that's the story of Christ on the cross. It is the biggest love. And as hard as fostering and adopting has been, it is still easier than what Christ did on the cross for us. And if you look at it through that lens, we really got the easy side of it.
So you went through this very natural step of man, I just don't think I can do this. How did you get to the place where that was overcome, and the point where you said, I'm all for it. Let's do this. I'm all in.
You know, when I heard the Lord say, it won't destroy you, but it will break your heart, I've never known him to break a promise. And so there was a heart shift of obedience. And I said, okay.
And then we kind of we went over for a play date with a friend of ours who was also fostering at the time. And Sabin and I had kind of said, we really want to do this, but we're just not sure. And the conversation kind of turned to this, it drives me crazy when Christians say, like God wouldn't want them to foster or to adopt. Like that would be against his plan to do that.
Or I'll have to pray about it. And she says, as if God is saying, no, don't care for the widows and orphans. That's fine. It's only in the Bible. And we both were sitting there.
Yeah, there was a big gulp kind of. And it was really like we got out to the car and we both kind of turned to each other and said,
I'll call the classes. Like, fine, we'll do it.
Literally, like that was the last straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was done after that, because that's when we started on the path to fostering.
That's awesome. So you're on that path of what is it now? So you finally said yes to it. God kicked you in your seat, and you're
Yes.
I'm on board. We're doing this. So let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's go. You've gone through the process. I think we need to talk about that another time. But for the sake of now, let's talk about something else. You've gone through the process of this is the classes that I'm taking. This is everything to expect and everything to prepare for. I'm done with all that. Now I'm moving on to my first encounter in this whole deal, this whole world of fostering my first child. What was that like?
We got a phone call. We were actually down in California. We got a phone call, and we were going to see Sabin's dad. It was her sister getting married that weekend or something, and we had gotten a phone call. We were on the plane, gotten a phone call, missed it, so we called back, and they said, we have 2 kids who brother-sister combination, and they need a place to stay. Are you guys able to do it? And so Sabin and I and Caden was with us, and he was part of the process and the decision-making too.
He was 7
And so
at the time.
we kind of looked at each other, and he said, okay.
But Caden, it was the 7-year-old who said, well, you told him yes, right? I mean, you did say yes, right? He was so adamant of, well, if God's called us to do this, like, let's go, let's do it. So I said, okay, I'll call her back and tell her yes. Yeah, call her back. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
And so your family at this time is you two and Caden.
And Caden.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you're at this point, at the decision point of saying yes or no to this other couple of children entering your family.
Right.
Totally changing your environment.
Completely.
Yeah.
completely.
For who knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
we had no idea that they could have stayed with us a couple weeks. We were long-term fostering, so I mean we had signed up for that part, but we didn't know truly if they were going to be long-term foster, or if they were just going to stay with us for a short period of time and then go back to their parents.
But my heart was for short term, so I wouldn't get attached.
Yeah.
That was my caveat of, okay, Lord, I'll do this, but I'm not getting attached to anybody. And he just laughs at me. I'm sure. He's just like, oh, she's talking again.
She's making promises that she can't keep.
Like, look at her go. She's so
man.
cute.
So you get to that point, right, where Caden's saying, you said yes, right? What happened at that point? So you said yes, and you're moving into that encounter now. You're walking through the steps of actually going through the foster. Or was it adoption or foster at this
Foster.
It was foster
Okay.
to begin with.
point? So you're starting out with this new world of fostering, and was that scary at all?
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So we get back from this amazing vacation, and they had said that they were going to bring the kids by at 4:00. And you weren't even home yet, were you? So it was me, and the doorbell rings, and it was so amazing to be able to see the moment that your life changed. And so I turned to look at the clock on the stove, and it was straight up 4:00. And I remember standing there with just like a knot in my gut, and yet butterflies in my gut, thinking, this is it. This is the moment our lives will never be the same. And the magnitude of seeing that and knowing that moment was coming, and then walking to the front door and going for the doorknob and having it loom up. And I thought, okay, here we go. And it was such a deep breath, and in they walk. And the rest is history.
That's incredible.
It really is.
Huh.
It really is.
So I'm thinking, for me at that point, there's got to be this thing, like we just talked about, the fear. There's got to be something that the enemy's trying to use to keep me, even after I said yes, from fully realizing the blessing of what God's trying to do here. What were some of those things that maybe the enemy used, and you just remember, like this was a vice that was going on with me in my mind, mentally, or something physically that was happening after they came in that was just so hard for us to stay on track, but we did it anyways, obviously. But was there anything like that happened that the enemy could use to try to take away that blessing?
I think they were we had, up until that point, our life was pretty like just routine. We had our own comfortable, our level of comfort was pretty high.
Yeah.
And they walk in and it was just this chaos. I mean, it was just as if like a box exploded and all this confetti was everywhere, and you're picking up the pieces and you're picking up the pieces day by day. And a lot of it was their own, like JJ and Bella were broken. I mean, we had to pick up a lot of their pieces of their brokenness and try and put them back together so that they were...
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
In respect to our children, because we're all broken people, childhood trauma is foundational. And so children come into homes with erroneous, faulty foundations that are basic life needs that have not been met. And so it's almost like you're giving someone and said, I need you to cross this minefield, and I need you to make it to the other side. And gosh, I'm so sorry, we have lost the map, but good luck with this. And so you will trigger these children, and you have no idea. Something so simple as it's bath time will set them off screaming, but you don't know what they've been through until you start unpacking it. And one of the things that the enemy will say to you, and really people who you think are going to support you, don't. That was the biggest shock. Of people who you thought were going to be your allies were not there, but who came out of the woodwork to support you was amazing. And so one of the things that people say is, this is too hard. And we always had the lens of, this is still easier than Christ getting on the cross for us. And we aren't quitters. And we feel like God invited us to have front row seats. Front row seats. Like he walked us down to the front row in this beautiful, just lavish theater and said, come join me on this. I'm going to show you what I can do. And we have always said, we're in it for the end credits. Like, by golly, I want to see how this ends.
Yep.
And so we stick with it. We just don't give up.
That's great. I mean, that's something that I think about all the time is like, what's he going to whisper into my ear to make me afraid or make me walk in my own wisdom and understanding of the situation?
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, right? So,
I'll tell you right now, don't do that.
because that's normal in anything in life, right?
Right.
Let alone something that's so packed with the minefield type thing. I mean, I feel like that in my own life with my family just normally, you know.
Yeah.
So throwing a huge extra thing into that would be crazy. So I just think about that all the time, you know, like that would be intense. I want to talk about how we can encourage our church congregation. So we know this, I love that broken world thing, right? Knowing that we're part of this broken world, we're part of broken decisions that we've made and walked through, broken situations that we've fallen prey to. And we've said yes to things we should not have. And we know that there could be people in there on Sunday or people listening to anything that we're saying that really are either currently walking through the decision process when it comes to saying yes or no to abortion.
Yes.
Or they've already walked through that and either made a decision that is what led you to being able to foster these two and them saying, I'm not going to. Or people that have said yes to that and have had an abortion and are now regretting that in different ways. And so acknowledging that this world is broken, the decisions that we've made are messed up no matter what, have put us in these situations that we're in, and we're dealing with these even tougher decisions that we're leading into now. So acknowledging that and encouraging these mothers who are walking through that, and then possibly even the people who are wondering whether they should get into fostering. But let's talk about the mothers first. What's something that we can encourage them with as they walk through these tricky avenues, whether they've already made a decision for good, or for better, or for worse, or they're in the process of making a decision now. What's something we can encourage them with?
So do you want me to, as mom? So from mom to mom.
Yeah.
So I would speak to the mothers who've already made the decision and maybe in the past have chosen abortion, that there is redemption available, right? God is there to redeem everything. And as a mom who has birthed and fostered and adopted, there is no judgment. There is no condemnation. There is only love. And if they want to sit down and talk, I would love to just sit and hear their hearts. But even more so, God would love to hear their hearts.
Yeah.
And so I would really encourage that for people who are maybe pregnant, for women who are pregnant now and are wondering, I really encourage you to choose life. Because as broken as my children's birth mothers are, right? These are grown women who somehow weren't saved as little girls. Nobody stepped in for whatever reason. But they chose life for their children.
Yeah.
But who I'd really like to talk to is the church, and not the building of Westside, but the church, God's people, and say we need to step up. That we can't just say to people, don't have abortions. But we're going to have to say is, I'm going to come alongside you, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to be here for you. And so really I can say right now, if there's anybody listening to this right now, and they're thinking about having an abortion, we'll adopt your baby. There is always room in our family, in our hearts. So serious as Jesus, like, come talk to us. Let us help you.
Yeah.
Because our 3 children were given life, the opportunity for life. And we've walked through this with them for 8 years now. And we have seen firsthand, like I said, front row seats, Casey, of redemption. He's redeemed our lives. Our relationship with the Lord is so much closer because we have had to not go on our own understanding. We have had to cling to the Savior of how do we do this? This is like,
There's no training for
there's no
fostering.
training.
I mean, the training that they give you is for a totally different scenario, and they don't include Christ in it.
Yeah.
And what we went through, and not even that we went through a bad situation or a bad circumstance, but what brought us there's nothing that will bring you closer to God than fostering and adopting, or even fostering, because you're relying on Him on a day-to-day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, some cases, because in what we were talking about earlier, I mean, just they're coming in and the disruption and the chaos and just the stuff that the baggage that they bring in, you have no idea what they've been through, their circumstances. And so your own understanding of how to deal with it is just so little. And so it really, you require, you pray, you rely on Jesus for His understanding to go through and see what they're going through from His perspective, from His eyes. Because if we tried to do it on our own, we would fail miserably. And it really, there's been nothing that has brought us closer to God than doing this.
That's great.
I remember this one really hard time. It's so funny now. It's almost embarrassing to say. And I was in the kitchen. I was so frustrated because it's just chaos and madness, right? And I said to the Lord, I was praying, and I was actually really more like yelling at God. This is really hard. I don't know about doing this. And He said to me, if you allow me, I will heal generations through this. And I said in all my humanness, do you have any idea what it's like to pour into someone and have them reject you? And as soon as it was done, okay, but I'm not you. So that's the amazing thing, is you get just a snapshot of what He did.
That's
so then it's
fantastic.
an honor.
That makes me think this, like, and this is the last thing I would ask you. If you could sum up like all the experience that you've had so far with this, and you could say this is the most impactful thing that that I can bring out of this, that God's done through all of this to me to bring me closer to him. So if I can take everything, sum it up, this is how I've grown closer to God through this experience. What would that look like?
You want to go first?
It kind of goes back to just what I said about in that you have to rely on Jesus, and it makes you recognize your own shortfallings.
Yeah.
And there's just so much more to life than to what you see or feel or do. And there's this whole other world out there that is like, I mean, he's made this world and we just see such a short piece of it, and that he opens it up for us, and it makes us recognize his majesty and his godhood, that we are not there.
The one takeaway I would have is when you choose life, you choose God you give him the opportunity to redeem. And unfortunately, abortion cuts that opportunity out, right? But I have 3 children that we have fostered and adopted who they are not the same people that walked in the front door. I'm not the same person because they walked in the front door. Our oldest is not the same person because they walked through the front door. And I know you are not. And when you get front row seats, like I said before, you want to settle in and you decide right then and there, I'm in it for the end credits. And you just never know how God's going to redeem someone's life.
That's great. Thank you so much for opening up your home and allowing us to ask you these questions. Like, this is going to bless some people. I appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.